I'm gonna be meeting Sam Witwer this summer. So about a month ago, Disney released a new TV show, a new animated series that is all about Darth Maul. I'm sure some of you guys have already seen it, Maul Shadow Lord. It is a fantastic series. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend it, but that's not really the point of today's video. I mean, it kind of is, but not really. See, I have always grown up with Star Wars. Star Wars has always been a part of my life, as my father is a huge Star Wars fanatic. I am even named after one of the main characters in the series. And no, I'm not talking about Star, the name that I go by, which is my middle name. I'm talking about my legal first name, which if you know, you know. If you don't, then you might not be very close friends with me. But anyhow, I myself wasn't really a crazy Star Wars fan. And that's mostly just because it always felt like my father was kind of forcing me to watch Star Wars rather than just organically letting me get into the series on my own volition. Regardless of that, I've always grown up with Star Wars. I've always been familiar with the characters and the story, etc., etc. However, it was only really whenever the Maul show came out that I discovered that I had a very deep love for this character in particular. He is my boyfriend. No, I will not be taking criticism. So you bet your ass whenever I saw this year's guest list at GalaxyCon and I saw that his voice actor Sam Witwer is going to be there, I absolutely knew that I had to get a photo with him. I already have tickets to do a photo op with him, as well as Hayden Christensen, who I'm sure we are all aware, but in the case you're not familiar with Star Wars and don't know who he is, he's the guy who played as Anakin, so that's pretty fucking cool if you ask me. So yeah, I have been hyperfixating the fuck out of Star Wars. I have been watching the Clone Wars cartoon series because that's kind of one of the only Star Wars series that I haven't really watched. I mean, it was a big thing coming out whenever I was a kid, but like I never paid too much attention because, you know, it felt like my dad was kind of forcing me to watch it. But oh my god, it is so good, which is shocking for me to say because I don't really get into cartoons. But yeah, I'm like on the second season right now. I'm definitely not gonna be done with the series by the time I meet Sam Witwer, but you know, it's okay. I can still enjoy it. I can still enjoy it and be a fan. As a cosplayer, since I'm gonna be doing a photo op with both actors, you guys can imagine I had to do something special. And seeing as how I don't really have any Star Wars cosplays, I knew immediately I had to get to work. So for my first Star Wars cosplay ever, I decided to settle on doing Darth Talon. If you're not familiar with who Darth Talon is, don't worry, she's kind of an obscure character within the Star Wars franchise. She really only has appearances within the comics, but essentially she's one of Darth Maul's apprentices. And if you've watched the Darth Maul Shadow Lord animated series, it is highly, highly, highly probable that Devin, who is one of the main characters in the series, is going to grow up and become Darth Talon. I mean, the characters, they're both Twi'lek. Darth Maul has only ever been known to have one Twi'lek apprentice, who is Darth Talon. Devin is pink, but she's also a teenager in the first season, so like, I think that it's very possible that as she gets older, her skin pigmentation is going to mutate and look more like Darth Maul's, especially if she's going to the dark side. And then she can, of course, just get like tattoos to represent Darth Maul herself. So yeah, I decided that this is gonna be my first Star Wars cosplay, and Star Wars characters are very well known for having very interesting character designs and having very unique alien species. So I knew that this cosplay was going to be a bit of a challenge. I knew that I could do it, but building this cosplay was going to be a whole new challenge. I would have to experiment and I would have to try new techniques that I have never tried before. So this cosplay, this entire build really pushed me out of my comfort zone for what I'm used to doing. Now, I have had some experience in the past working with EVA Foam and making armor for cosplays, but like I was not really comfortable doing it. That kind of hints that a lot of my cosplays that I do are rather simple in design. And besides that, I would have to be making my own Lekku. If you don't know what Lekku is, they're basically like the tentacles or the tails that the Togrotu, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this species and this species has, I think there's a couple other Star Wars species that have Lekkus, but these are kind of like the main ones that I think of whenever I think of Lekkus. So it would be the first time that I'm making one. Now, I do plan on doing a couple more other Twi'lek cosplays in the future. I would love to do Hera Syndulla. She's a character in the Clone Wars as well as in the Ahsoka series. I think that she would be very fun and would actually be kind of an easy build. And then, of course, I also want to do a Sakura. She doesn't really have much of a presence, but nevertheless, I feel like she's very iconic. And I can see this as being a relatively easy build, especially now that I've built Darth Talon, so super excited for that. So my number one step that I needed to do before I even began this cosplay was to plan out how exactly I wanted to do everything, and then research on what kind of material I wanted to use and how I wanted to make everything. And I actually discovered this website not too long ago. I'm gonna have a link down for this website down below for you guys to maybe consider trying yourself. It's totally free, although I think there is like a paid membership you could try, but it's called Melanates. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Essentially, this website is just one big project board. I've used it for 2 different cosplay builds now, and I really love it. I'm gonna continue to use it with my cosplay projects. I've used it so far for my Spider-Gwen cosplay build, and then also for my most recent Darth Talon cosplay build. But yeah, it's essentially like an online cosplay board. You can add photos to it. This is really helpful for me as references. And then you can also add links. This was super handy for me because I had to buy a lot of different material and different pieces and tools for this cosplay that a lot of the times came from different websites. So this just made it really handy to organize everything and to have all of the references up that I needed. So I would highly recommend that you give it a try, especially since it's for free. It just really helped simplify the entire process and planning out this cosplay. So really great. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I just recently discovered it and I love it. So for Darth Talon's Lekku, we're gonna start there for this. I spent quite a while debating whether or not I actually wanted to commission someone to make the Lekku or if I wanted to try and make it myself. And it was very intimidating. It was a very intimidating build. In fact, I was probably the most nervous for the Lekku, for making the Lekku versus pretty much everything else with this cosplay. And that's because I knew that even if the armor looked like crap, even if the makeup wasn't super good, as long as the Lekku looked spot on, I feel like that would be good enough for people to recognize what character I'm supposed to be. But the prices for the Lekku that I found off like Etsy and stuff, I mean, I can see why a lot of these sellers would charge what they're selling, but I didn't want to spend that kind of money. I'm really trying to budget and save. I already spent a lot of money buying GalaxyCon tickets, plus the tickets to do photo ops with these actors, which is not cheap. So I had to be very responsible with my money for this cosplay build, which was not easy. Oh my God. If you're a cosplayer, you know how easy it is to go overboard with your spending when building new projects. And that was a struggle with this cosplay. So yeah, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to attempt to build the Lekku myself so I can try and save a couple $100. And if it doesn't work out, then I will scrap the project and I'll just commission someone to make me Darth Talon's Lekku. But I wanted to try and do it myself. So the first thing that I needed to figure out was to find a proper pattern, and I actually came across this one right here. I came across off Etsy, which funny enough, I had already been following this cosplayer on Instagram. I didn't realize they had an Etsy shop until recently, so it was honestly just a win. What I really liked about this pattern is because it is not just like a generic Lekku pattern. This one is specifically catered for Darth Talon. So it goes into detail on how to properly paint her tattoos that she has. And I just think that the length is very accurate because in the comics, Darth Talon has really long Lekkus. Now Lekkus are there's a lot of different varieties of them. Some Twi'leks have 3 Lekkus. I think there have been Twi'leks who only have 1. Most of the time, the female Twi'leks will only have 2 Lekkus, and usually they're not that long. Like they're just like they go a little bit below the shoulder, and they're usually pretty high up on the head. But Darth Talon's is very long. Hers goes down almost to her waist, so I needed to figure that out. Now, this seller does have a couple different variants for the Lekku pattern. She has like a generic one, which you can purchase and is a little bit more cheaper. I decided to get the full set, so it's not just Darth Talon's Lekku, but it also comes with a headband, which Darth Talon isn't really depicted to be wearing a headband, but wearing a headband will not only help keep the Lekku in place so it doesn't slide off your head, because it is going to be quite a bit of weight in the back of your head, but it also just in general helps hide that seam, so that just really saves time when doing makeup. What I needed to do was get the proper fabric, as well as a pair of stockings, some fiber fill, and then some rice. Now, I had a tremendous struggle getting the correct type of fabric to even make the Lekku. The seller recommends using, I think, about like 1mm upholstery foam, but I could not, and I shit you not, I could not find 1mm upholstery foam. The thinnest amount of upholstery foam I could find was 5mm, and I ended up ordering it just to try and figure out maybe if I could try and use this, if it would make much of a difference. Nope, it did not. It was way, way, way too thick to possibly use for Darth Talon's Lekku. I could barely fold it in half. It just wouldn't have flowed the same way. And I didn't want my Lekku to be stiff. I wanted to have the ability to swing it around, to pull it over my shoulder, to even wrap it around my neck if I wanted to. Like, I wanted it to be very flexible so I could have fun with it. And the 5mm foam was just too thick for that. Nevertheless, I still tried. I cut it out. I attempted to shave it down to see if maybe I could get it to be a little bit thinner, but that just ultimately didn't work. So what I did was I just settled for some generic white cotton fabric, and I figured, well, if I'm gonna be filling it up with fiber fuel, that should be enough to hold the Lekku shape, right? And it did. I think that the Lekku turned out to be a huge success ultimately. I can see why the seller recommended using upholstery foam, because upholstery foam is it has the same flexibility as regular fabric, and 1mm will be like the same thickness. However, because of the slight stiffness that it has, that is what's ultimately going to keep it upright on top of your head. And with my Darth Talon, mine unfortunately fall a little bit lower on my head. Regardless of that, I think it looks good. It looks very natural. I don't think it looks weird or off. I mean, you guys can let me know down below if you think my Lekku looks weird, but I did the best that I could, and considering the fact that this is the first time I've ever made anything like this, I'm actually very happy. So yeah, once I cut out the pattern pieces for the Lekku, which was very simple and straightforward. I thought it was gonna be a lot more complicated. It was very easy. I put maybe like a tablespoon of rice into the tip of each Lekku tail. Now, you might be wondering, why are you putting rice in there? This is to properly weight down the Lekku. So if you just use fiber fuel, it might be a little bit too light. So if you're going outside, it'll probably just kind of fly in the wind. So this just essentially helps weight it down. And then of course I used the fiber fuel, or the stuffing, the cotton stuffing, to fill up the Lekku. I filled it to the absolute brim to make sure that it would be stiff and that it would hold its shape. And then I sewed everything up. I did use the 5mm upholstery foam to sew up the inside of the Lekku tail so the cotton wouldn't get in my hair. And I think that was a good decision to do because then it kind of also reinforces and helps keep that shape that the Lekku has. Now, the seller has two different recommendations on what you can do with actually doing the cover for the Lekku tail. Number one, you can do what I did and just get some stockings in whatever color you want, and then just pull that over the Lekku tails. And that'll sort of also act as like a wig grip or like a headband so that it kind of stays on your head. Or you can kind of just make your own pattern using the Lekku pattern to make it, which I think might be handy if you want to do like maybe like kind of like a leather material to make it match a little bit more with your skin. However, I didn't do that. I decided to just, for my first time, I would just be using some stockings. And I think that it turned out great. I think it's great. This is probably the same method I'm gonna do for my other Twi'lek cosplays. I'm not 100% on that. I might experiment next time I make some Lekkus, but that's what I did and I think it worked out great. I just put on the stockings backwards first onto the tails, and then I pinned everything in place with some fabric pins to make sure it was as tight as possible on the tails. And from there, that's whenever I cut off the excess fabric and I sewed everything up. Now, I do wish I would have used red thread for sewing things up. At the time, all I had on hand was black thread, which doesn't look bad, like it's hardly noticeable, but if I have any recommendations next time whenever I make another pair of Lekku tails, I'm just gonna use whatever thread matches, or at least is close enough to match the actual skin color of whatever Twi'lek character I'm cosplaying. Once all of that was set in place, I did go through and just to try and keep the tails as upright on my head as possible, I did pin the Lekku to the stockings and I sewed that in. It does create kind of a weird, messy stitch mark, but I like to think it helps keep it in place a little bit more. I don't really think that's super necessary, but that's just what I did, so you can feel free to try that if you want to or not. Once the Lekku was finally made, that's when I can begin painting. Now, thankfully, this PDF pattern does come with like a stencil that you can use to actually paint the tattoos onto the Lekku, which is what I did utilize. However, it was kind of awkward to use the stencil. So my best recommendation would just be to use the stencil to kind of draw everything out with a pen, and then you can go back and you can refine and touch things up with paint once you're done. And I just used like black acrylic paint because this isn't really something I'm gonna be washing. And from my experience in the past of using acrylic on fabric, generally speaking, if you paint it thoroughly enough, it's not going to wash or fade. And I mean, this isn't really the type of costume you wanna throw in the washing machine anyways. This is the type of costume you want to be a little bit more gentle and a little bit more caring with. I also would like to emphasize that you do not need to be 100% perfect with any of the tattoo designs for Darth Talon. There's not really a whole lot of reliable source material whenever it comes to references. And besides that, her tattoos, a majority of them are really uneven looking. They're not like 100% even across her face or anything, so you really don't need to stress with that. They don't need to be 100% accurate. As long as you do have the general idea of the form and the function of her tattoos, and you do color everything in, I think that you should be fine. I mean, this is one of those characters, one of those cosplays that you can really kind of just get creative with. Once I was finished with the Lekku, I moved on to the actual headband. Now, for me, with the pattern does come in small, and I have a really small head, but with the pattern for the headband, I thought it was just too small. It didn't properly go across my forehead all the way, so I did have to make adjustments in order to make it fit across my head properly. And I would say that's something that you're definitely gonna wanna take into consideration, especially if you get this exact same pattern. Is just to make sure that you're measuring your head correctly so that you're not making something that's too small. The ear cones I did not make myself. The ear cones actually came from a different Etsy seller. They're super, super affordable. Like I paid like maybe a total of $10 for them, and they were shipped right away. I loved everything about them. I did end up trimming around the ear cones just so it could fit into my headband a little bit easier. And I just used the same face paint I was gonna be using on my face and my chest to paint the ear cones. I'm going to try and reuse the ear cones for some of my other Twilight cosplays. But honestly, if I can't get the face paint off and I'm stuck with just those being red, it's not really a big deal because they're honestly really affordable. So once I was done with the upper portion of Darth Talon, the next set of problems came in because then I had to do the bodysuit. Now, I'm pretty sure that most other Darth Talon cosplayers will just actually paint their body for this character. And if you want to go ahead and do that, then by all means, but I personally am not going to be doing that. I am not familiar with body paint. In my experience of trying to use body paint, it just isn't really reliable. It's so easy to sweat off. Not to mention, this character has a lot of tattoos, and I want to be able to cosplay this character without having someone else's assistance with putting everything on. So my solution to this problem was to actually get a bodysuit. And for that, I just got one off Amazon. I tried to get something that was close in the color that matched the leggings that I used for the Lekku. It's not exact. I had a very difficult time finding a color that was similar to this, but it's close enough that I think that for like most photos and videos, just using a simple filter will help make it match a little bit better. If you're gonna be doing what I'm doing and doing the bodysuit method for Darth Talon, I recommend going down a size 1, just so it's really skin tight on you. Now, I normally wear a small. I should have gotten an extra small just to make sure everything was really skin tight on me. But unfortunately, I did not do that, so I had to fit everything myself. Now, there is actually a Darth Talon bodysuit off Amazon. It's not that expensive, and I almost bought it. There were no reviews, no photo reviews for it, even though I had seen other cosplayers use that bodysuit. And when looking at the photos that they displayed on Amazon, it looked like it was just a little too dark, and I really needed something that would match my Lekku. So that's why I just decided to make the bodysuit myself. In the future, maybe I'll consider going back and purchasing that bodysuit. If I do, then I'll be sure to make like a full video review here on YouTube of my experience with it and what I think about it. But for right now, I was just gonna be making my own custom bodysuit. So yeah, I went through and I had to tailor the fuck out of this bodysuit. I cut off excess fabric in the armpits just to make sure everything was tight there. I also had to cut off excess fabric in the stomach, which funny enough kind of makes it look like I was bisected, but that was not intentional. I just genuinely was trying to make the bodysuit as tight as possible. I also cut out the crotch portion within the bodysuit because I felt like there was just too much fabric in that area. And again, I needed something that was gonna be really tight on me, because ultimately I want to give the illusion that I'm not wearing a bodysuit and that it's actually my skin, which was gonna be difficult, but I had to try. Once all of that was finished and I had everything properly tailored, I did purchase a mannequin so that I could put the bodysuit on top of the mannequin. Now, the mannequin is not accurate to my size at all. This mannequin is giant, but I just needed it so I could paint the tattoos onto. And I free-handed all of the tattoos on the body. And for that, I just used at various different photos that I could find on the internet of Darth Talon. I found that the figurine photos were really handy and helpful. Some of the actual clips from the comics helped a lot too. Again, I really want to stress that you do not need to make the tattoos perfect, because Darth Talon's tattoos are kind of asymmetrical anyways. So as long as you have the general idea of how her tattoos are, you should be just fine. And I think that the tattoos also really sell the illusion that this isn't just a bodysuit and that it's actually a part of my skin. Once that was done and I was satisfied with the tattoos, I I then purchased a bra that I was going to sew up to the inside of the actual bodysuit. Now, if Talon didn't have like her whole bust going on, I could easily get away with not doing this, but because she's a very busty character, I had to cut the fabric off my chest. Now, if you wanted to maybe just draw on a cleavage for the bodysuit, you could definitely do that. That would absolutely save you a lot of time whenever it comes to doing makeup. But in my opinion, I didn't like the way that that looked. I don't think it would have sold the illusion that I had a chest, and I thought it would have made it a little bit more obvious that it was a bodysuit. So once that was finished, and by the way, I did all of that literally within one day, then I could focus on the armor for the cosplay. Darth Talon's armor is kind of like a bikini. I mean, she's literally just wearing like a black thong with some like thigh-high boots, some long black gloves, and then like kind of like a skirt thing. For the armor, I decided that I was going to just create my own pattern for it. So again, breaking out the mannequin, I wrapped everything in plastic wrap before going over it with painter's tape and then just kind of roughly drawing the shape that I wanted the pattern to have. I couldn't find anywhere on Etsy a proper Darth Talon armor pattern. Otherwise, I would have just purchased that and used someone else's pattern. So yeah, that's why I kind of did this. Her little bikini top portion armor is a really, really unique design. I tried finding something similar to it, but I couldn't, so, you know. Everything was made out of 5mm foam except for the bra portion of the armor. That was actually made out of, I think, like 1mm foam. And that was honestly just because I accidentally ordered the wrong millimeter foam. And by the time it came in, I just didn't feel like sending it back, which ended up working out really well for me because then I could shape and mold it to cup my breast properly. I did really try to make the bra out of a different type of material. I was considering using Warblow, but Warblow was just really, really expensive and they didn't really give me a whole lot. So I found like this plastic alternative material off Amazon. I tried using it and I was able to get it to melt, but the problem was it was melting to my mannequin and it was also just a little too hard and sharp. And I just did not need something like that digging into my breast. And I couldn't really properly smooth it out. So I decided to scrap that idea completely and just decided to do everything out of EVA foam. To create the bra portion of the armor, what I did was I just layered everything. I sketched out the rough design that she has. It kind of looks like her bra is made out of like sheet metal just because of the way that it's angled. And from there, I layered the 1mm foam on top of each other. I probably did like 3 different layers on the armor. And it looks really janky once it's done, but I think it actually really works. It looks really, really similar to her own armor. And the rest of her armor is really simple. There's no crazy designs to it. It's kind of just like sheet metal, which I used the mannequin and I just made my own pattern out of that. Once all of the EVA foam armor patterns were cut out, I then went on with my heat gun and I just went ahead and sealed everything by putting it directly onto the mannequin to help kind of form and shape it to be, you know, the shape that I wanted it to hold. I did make the belt I made it out of a yoga mat that I had, just because I wanted the belt to be a little bit more flimsy, a little bit more stretchy and malleable since it's gonna be on my waist. And I kind of just used my Supergirl belts that I also made out of a yoga mat to kind of roughly draw the shapes that I wanted. So yeah, once I had all of the armor pieces cut out, I went ahead and I did a layer of Mod Podge onto it just to get everything nice and smooth. Now, whenever I was doing my research on how I could paint EVA foam to look like armor, a lot of people said it's kind of just up to you on what kind of texture you wanted. Most people, I think, will use a coat of Mod Podge after they have painted the armor, but I've seen quite a people do it before and then after, so that's just what I decided to do. and I think it came out really, really smooth in the end. Now, what would have really helped elevate this armor to make it a lot better is if I had a Dremel to kind of weather the edges to make it a little bit more smooth. Since it is kind of rough, I just cut everything out with kitchen scissors. And I do actually have a Dremel, but it's all the way at my mother's house in New Bern, which is like 2 hours away. And, you know, I'm not really close to my family, so I just was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna cut everything out with kitchen scissors and hope for the best. So yeah, once the layer of Mod Podge did properly dry, I took the armor outside and I laid everything down on like an old mat I had. And I just went ahead and I spray painted it over once with some black spray paint. This was just to help kind of get rid of all of the little marks that I had made whenever cutting out the armor. And then once the spray paint was properly dried, then I went in with some acrylic paint to paint the armor. I decided to use a mix of gray and white acrylic paint. And I did like probably about 3 layers of that across the armor, just trying to smooth everything out and make it as smooth as possible. If I were to repaint the armor, I think I would just in the future buy straight up silver acrylic paint and then just paint it on like that. But you know, I wanted to utilize the things I already had since I was working on a strict budget for this cosplay. So yeah, I did everything like that. And once that paint was properly dried, I did one last coat of Mod Podge just to really seal everything together and make sure it lasted. And the next final part for the cosplay was really just the very tedious process of adding straps. Now, to add the straps, I went between using hot glue and super glue, and I just used these straps that I got off Amazon because it's kind of like Velcro. It comes with several different hooks that you can kind of just, you know, hook together, and I think it works really, really good. Of course, I measured out my arms and my thighs to make sure that I was getting the proper length for the strap. I would recommend giving it a couple extra inches just because certain parts of your body might gain or lose a little bit of weight. It'll give you a little bit of wiggle room to adjust the straps later on in the future to make it more comfortable for you in the end. So yeah, once these straps were glued down, I also used a bit of the 1mm foam to kind of sandwich over top the straps just to really seal everything together to make sure that these bad boys are not moving. And in the few times that I have worn this cosplay, I have not had any issues so far of the straps breaking. The only issue that I've had with the armor ripping was the other night I did a full photo shoot as Darth Talon. I was in that cosplay for probably about 4 to 5 hours. It did rip a little bit in the bust area, so I'm going to have to reinforce that with some more EVA foam in the back. But my solution to that problem, rather than just wear the armor as like a strapless bra, which is how she normally wears it, I just decided to take a strap and then go around my actual bust, which doesn't look bad in my opinion. I think it looks good. It's not 100% accurate to what she does, but again, I think it gets the job done. So once all of the armor was painted and I had all of the straps properly glued down, the last final thing that I decided to do was, of course, I added some thumbtacks to each piece of the armor just to make it look like it had some screws. Now, I do think that the thumbtacks are a little bit too shiny considering how dark I painted the armor. And I tried to weather down by doing like a mix of black acrylic paint and water to make it a bit darker. And it worked for some of the buttons, but not really. It does really help the armor give it a little bit more depth. So I would definitely recommend weathering the armor a bit. But yeah, ultimately it didn't really work super well. Oh, and by the way that I made the actual skirt, Darth Talon has a really weird skirt. It's like attached to her belt, but she only has it in the front. Like she does not have the skirt portion in the back, which I think is kind of funny because then like her ass is just hanging out. But yeah, I just bought like a roll of black pleather off Amazon. I measured it out and I did like 3 panels. And I actually sewed that to the belt before I covered it up with the top layer design for the belt. And then of course, in the back of the belt, I did add some Velcro to each of the straps just so I could Velcro everything together. And yeah, there you have it. That's pretty much how I made my Darth Talon cosplay. I will say with the knuckles of the cosplay, I did just go ahead and hot glue that right on to the actual glove, just because I don't really want to use those gloves for any other cosplay. They're really cheap, so they're just going to be my Darth Talon cosplay gloves. In the future, I might end up replacing the boots. Whenever I attend GalaxyCon as Darth Talon, I think I'll use a different pair of boots for Darth Talon because the boot covers that I got off Amazon for this character is already sort of worn down from my photo shoot last night. It already has a couple holes in it, and I had the issue of it sliding down whenever I test wore the costume. So I think if I wear like an actual pair of boots with it, it'll really keep the armor in place from sliding around. But yeah, other than that, that is how I put together my Darth Talon cosplay. I am so excited to meet Sam Witwer and Hayden Christensen next month. I really hope that they like my cosplays because I did make the cosplay just to meet them, and it's my first time ever doing a Star Wars cosplay, so oh my god. What a relief to finally have it done. This was way too stressful for me. If you enjoyed this little tutorial vlog thingy, then I highly recommend you go ahead and subscribe and stick around, as in the next couple weeks, I will be doing a full makeup tutorial for Darth Talon. So I'm gonna talk about where I got my contacts and how I painted my face and all of that good stuff. I hope to also be doing a lot more Star Wars cosplays in the future, so that's something to always stick around for as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this cosplay down below in the comments. And if you want to stick around on my channel just a little bit longer, I don't have any other Star Wars cosplays at the moment, but I'm going to recommend 2 other makeup tutorials that you might find helpful. One of them is a makeup tutorial for Liara Tassoni from the Mass Effect trilogy, and then the other one is for Miranda Lawson from also the Mass Effect trilogy. So if you're a sci-fi fan, you enjoy Star Wars, you might also enjoy Mass Effect stuff. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and head out of here, guys. I'm so happy with this cosplay and the way it turned out. I hope you guys think it looks cool too. And if you wanna see photos and videos for this cosplay, you can find the photos gonna be up on my Patreon, and you can find exclusive TikTok videos by actually subscribing to my TikTok channel. But that's all for now. Thank you guys so much again for the love and support for this cosplay, and I'll see you guys in my next build.